So ready to say, do I have to call the order?
No, you can call the order for that, but there's no remote.
Oh, and there's no remote participation?
Nope. Everyone's here.
I guess we'll talk about website enhancements, timeline planning.
Okay, jump right into it.
So, the committee will recall the last time we met a few months ago, staff shared with you a draft version of a roadmap for JMRL's web strategy for the next 5 years. And took some notes, had some discussion about it, brought it back. Staff met to tweak a little bit. The goal here is actually my goal, the director's annual goal for the library board, which is I forgot to write it down, but it was generally come up with this document to show where JMRL is going with all of our web components. So my thought today was we would just review this and then talk a little bit. Sarah and I wanted to show you the release notes that are available for staff and the public about current web enhancements that are happening. And then have a discussion about how this gets presented to the full board in May, which would be it's early this month, May 18th. So let me start actually, if I've got the mic. I've shown the tech committee this before, but just a reminder that all trustees and library staff have access to the JMRL intranet, which is an internal website serving information for library staff and trustees. One of the things that Sarah keeps up to date here under admin departments, IT tech and web support, along with the IT joke of the week, is more information. Here we go. This release notes document that includes information that is monthly updated on what changes have been made to all of JMRL's web components. Sarah, did you want to say anything about it or walk through it at all?
I started maintaining this list after we launched the website 3 years ago, June. We're almost at 3 years that this Drupal website has been live, and that Find It has been our main catalog interface. What I put at the top was these are the development releases. So when talking about development stuff, programmable and whatnot, add-on software changes and stuff, that's what gets listed here. Actually, if you open it up, can you open up
This one?
No, the upper left, upper right corner, there's an expand. There you go. That just opens the whole document. And there should be a sidebar. There, yeah, the table of contents to the left. You can scroll down and it just lists all the different sites that had something happen. I used to do this bi-weekly, twice a week, or twice a month, bi-monthly. And then I didn't need as many updates or development changes, so it became once a month. But the key thing about this is that these are just development things. If you notice a list there to see task details and or content and maintenance requests, you can see that document. And this is a big one. Please load. These are all the stats and tickets I get. So these are all the stats about, you can scroll down, David, on this page. And every month, this breaks down the tickets and the topics. So if you look at my job as half of it's development and half of it is content and maintenance. This is all content and maintenance. The release notes is development. So you can see if you look at, and at the very end, I mean, it's all 12 months, and at the very end, it has total for the year.
Is this, and so Sarah, you also share with branch managers on a monthly basis, like a pie chart, and they see.
It's just a pie chart of
the
exactly
same
this.
information.
Yeah. So for example, last month I had 291 tickets. That was 291 content changes, updates, whatnot, besides any development that I was doing.
And Trumba is a huge.
I treat that as content. And, you know, sometimes it's a change to the content, sometimes it's just approving and being a second set of eyes.
That's,
Yes,
I think
yes.
more than anything, we were talking about this a little bit also in the context of the strategic plan committee a few weeks ago about what statistics get reported to the board and what are internal, and what get reported to the state and blah, 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 blah. I guess there was some, I don't know if this is a discussion point for this group or not, but whether or not the board would have an interest in seeing this level of detail about like, here's what the work is behind.
So what you get for the social media, like the
Yeah.
posts that Dylan does a month, that's where my tickets come in. You can see how many tickets for this, for the blog, for the intranet, for the website content, for the calendar alone. You could see that breakdown. That's all. And then these development milestones, I usually make a ticket for them. It's one ticket to fix this JavaScript bug sort of thing. So, or upgrade this software level for PHP 8, that sort of thing. But this is a good, the release notes is more about detailed web development, whereas the others about that's there.
Anyway, this is not really, this is tangentially related, but
It's
we're
just
talking
on-
about it. It's all available for the board for any perusing.
The piece of this that interests me a little bit is just the breakdown, the assistance that we were trying to bring on. So of that spreadsheet that we looked at, how much of that would have been fulfilled by the content specialist position? Was that full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
So then if we had been able to fill that part-time with a part-time employee, how much of this would have been covered by that?
So here's 2025 totals on the end here, and probably so 2,400 some tickets for the year.
Basically, all of this would be the other would be from that position.
No, there's the data structure, the
Yeah.
blog work, the catalog, resources, find it, general feed, like those are Sarah's job. Mostly it would be all of this meaning Trumba calendar.
I don't know. I'm just asking what percentage of this. So if this is half of her time,
Right.
what percentage of that half would have been were we seeking to fill with this content specialist?
Out of all these, I would say, I mean, development stuff takes a lot more time. Right, so entering content doesn't take as much time. You could say, I would say as much as possible. All of these, I mean,
Yeah.
only about 3 of those categories would take development know-how. Data structure is more about development. So I had 52 tickets that were definitely development, would not have been that person. But the one that says content, 325, that we were hiring a content person. The
Right.
calendar is content.
Sure.
So you could take that number. I mean, I don't know exactly how to break it.
Well, to me, the Trumba calendar number, like that's 1,600
It's the
number right
But,
there.
but as you're saying, not every one of
Not
the
all of
numbers
them, sure.
takes the same amount of time.
Right, I mean, some of those take me 5 minutes, some of them take back and forth and figuring out stuff. And like this week, I had to write Trump as a support and say, hey, one of my staff found a bug of how this is working. So I had to test it, debug it, report it, you know, and some of that I wouldn't necessarily say a content person would do.
Right.
So, I could probably crunch this and give you a pretty good.
I'm just asking for both.
Yeah.
Overall impression ballpark number.
But I feel like
Any-
I'm gonna
any
come,
thought?
no matter what you say right now, I'm gonna have a ballpark number in my mind, and I want that to be as accurate as possible.
I mean, any amount of help. Right now,
Yeah, even the 5-minute task is interruptive because you're.
Yes, there's a lot of.
It takes there's a lot more cost than 5 minutes a day.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely.
And I feel like the part that could, make sense taking to the full board would be if there's, right, a question of like, are there any other sources of funding that could support a part-time role? Even like temporary, like a 12-month thing or something, right, whether it's existing funding, whether it's Friends of the Library supporting, like, is there any other way to get a paid intern or whatever the way that you would have to frame it to sort of get support for this? That feels like it could.
And having the data would be something that would help with swaying
Yeah.
different parties.
I would look at
I will say that, so since the tech committee last met, we had some conversation about like how much of these tasks could potentially be automated as well, and of course there's the like startup cost there to figure out like how to do those things. So since that time, JMRL has applied and been accepted to the AI for VA program at the University of Virginia, and it's effectively an intern program that they run with students, undergraduate students, is my impression, with some grad level students over the summer to get a team of them working on a project-based level for credit. So we presented this exact problem set to them, basically to say, hey, here's our need, here's the issue, we sought funding for it and didn't get it. Can you help us to come up with some solutions? And I'll say that they were very clear that they're not going to develop they're not going to give us a solution for it, but what they will do is spend the summer looking at it and coming up with suggestions on how JMRL and our own structures could implement a solution. So looking forward to that. We'll see. Even if it doesn't work, it will, I think, answer some, even a no is an answer to some questions that we have about how to attack this moving forward. And that was based on the conversations that the tech committee had when that opportunity came by through the Chamber of Commerce here. We jumped on it because we've been talking about like how can we kind of leverage some community support or look outside our own staffing to figure out how to make this work. Now that, like anything else, that's going to come with a time commitment. Somebody's going to meet with these students and really explain to them the issues. But the hope is that that'll get paid back. All right. We just wanted to show that because we were talking about it, the staff were talking about, we're talking a lot about other data things as well. Again, the strategic plan was talking about this, and we were talking about strategic plan committee, we were talking about some other like tech tutorials. It's something that doesn't get recorded, that we're not recording in a way that the board would see. So I'm just thinking about like we've shared the same statistical information with the board for many, many years, and the financials don't, you need to see the financials every month. They need to be there. You need to see the circulation data, but then we make choices about what else gets shared. And as I'm thinking about it, this is one of the things that maybe would provide for the board and for the public. Like, here's what's happening with the library staffs. It really wasn't on the agenda. Sorry. Okay, so the document that we reviewed a few months ago in this committee, I just made it a little bigger, but you should have the paper copy in front of you. The JMRL Web Strategy Roadmap. The feedback that we got from the committee at the last meeting was that it wasn't clear what the organization's priorities were for the specific components that were here. For the first page, this 2-page document, for the first page, the priorities are kind of, in my mind at least, they're temporal, right? Like the things that are up first are the highest priorities. And some of that is, as we discussed a couple of months ago, is due to when current tools are expiring or when contracts are up with current vendors. So we looked at the second page here as a place to really kind of prioritize the different components of the of JMRL's web presence. And we had a lot of good discussion about this, some philosophical discussion back and forth about what needs to be where here. But this is where staff ended up on the priorities for the various components that make up JMRL's website. I think the biggest one was a kind of a discussion about like, some things were high priority because something has to happen or else we can't move forward, like for Drupal needs to be upgraded to Drupal 10,
Well,
12,
beyond where we are.
beyond where we are, or else we lose, basically, we're not gonna be able to offer anything on the web anymore as we currently are unless we upgrade that. So that has to be a high priority. And that has to take priority over some things that I would consider top of the list. Like for me, the view find and find it catalog would be our top priority, but understanding that there are some other things that factor more importantly in the shorter term that have to be addressed. I think the good example there is the intranet, right? Since that is a staff tool for the most part, we have that as a high priority on this list. But, because our services to the public, it's, I don't know, we ended up with that as high because it needs to happen for a technological reason, but the public doesn't care as much about that as they do about viewpoint, for sure.
But providing tools to staff to serve the public.
Very important. I'm not saying it's not important.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that viewfind is what people are gonna care about.
Yes, the discovery layer.
Well, that's a good point. Not necessarily viewfind. Viewfind is the current tool.
A discovery layer,
Rediscovery layer.
which there are other products like Viewfind or I or Clarivate provides a product.
Yeah, and when we say discovery layer, we're talking about something that sits on top of our catalog to make it available to the public in such a way that they can use it.
It's prettier. Yeah.
Prettier. So this is open for one last crack at feedback before it gets handed over to the board, saying here is JMRL's web strategy.
On the graphical page, what is involved in JMRL design branding review?
Yeah, I mean, that's the overall, that's part of the strategic plan. It's an overall review of JMRL's branding. So outside of this project, it's a system-wide review and potentially bringing in outside resources to take a look at JMRL's overall branding scheme, which means like the tagline, color scheme, part of our style manual, reviewing that, and then decisions that are made there need to flow down. And part of that conversation will be our web presence as well, like how that, if we come up with a new branding strategy, that would be part of what we're looking for, like how to rebrand our website.
Yeah, the whole website. Start be to match whatever marketing.
And do you think that would be, when do you think we'll have a new JMRL style guide or the, even if it's no changes? It looks like from this.
Yeah, somewhere in 2029, probably.
Okay, because one thing we discussed last time was because I don't think we've ever done a greenfield, hey, how would our website be re-visualized or rethought if we didn't have any existing history, just from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
And that I think that needs to be done every 5 years, I'd say, something like that. I don't know, 5 to 8 years. Probably, if this were right around the corner, I would say it doesn't make sense to do it until you know what the style guide is. I guess I'd like to. I guess it's just far enough away where it doesn't make sense probably to revisualize before then.
I think so. Sarah, you just said 3 years. The new website,
Right.
is 3 years old now, so that would put 2029 right at the 6-year mark there. Right kind of in the sweet spot of what you're talking about.
Okay, I mean, I guess the question is, does it need a separate line item that, hey, after we get a new style guide, obviously. Here's what I would hope not to see. I would hope to do better than the following scenario. Following scenario is, okay, we change the colors and we change the logo, now it's using a serif font and it's purple and green instead of blue and orange.
Yeah.
And we just backfill, okay, we got a design and a layout, and we're just gonna backfill purple and green and serif and we're done. I would hope to see at some point, whatever's let's close the laptop, go and say, if we're building a new website, what would it look like? What would we want it to look like? What would be the visual presentation? And I would hope for that to happen. So I don't know if there's square, so first of all, do other people agree or not? And I don't know if there's a square we would need to put on the piece of paper to kind of help remind us, yes, that's an important thing to do, or if we just say, well, it's in this larger JMRL square.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's part of the larger thing. And I'm thinking about what our friends at the library are going through right now. They're actually very specifically looking at color schemes and logo. And they're working with the tools that the CACF makes available through the Catchifier, where it's basically like taking local nonprofits and connecting them with design or any, lots of different resources. One of them is a design resource. And what they're doing is very similar to what you described. It was like you feel like here's three different ways to approach this problem, and here's what that might look like in all of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's my expectation, that something in the realm of what you're talking about is what is encompassed by this here.
And I feel like, right, the way I would sort of describe part of what needs to happen there is an information architecture and user experience review, and then, redesign based on what's found. And I would hate to be doing that right now, because the way that AI is changing everything so fast, I would have extremely low confidence that anything we did now would be good 3 years from now. Whereas in this time frame, I think that the dust will have settled, and you'll be able to look at some of the more cutting edge libraries. What have they done? What do we like? What don't we like? Right? Some will have done crazy stuff that you're just like, oh my God, like all they did is put ask the library for everything. There's no clickable links. There's just a box, a chat box, right? Like, but I think in 2 or 3 years, the dust will have settled over how has and all of the products that you're using will, the catalog and, the discovery layer and so forth will have figured out ways to integrate AI or not, right? To have better recommendations for books that are in or catalog, and, if you like this book, you might like these books that are more based on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're starting to see, I think, with a lot of the vendors that we're talking to, is that everybody, whatever they're selling you is going to put AI in the front of it right now, right? Like, oh, we've got this AI soda for you or whatnot. But definitely they're starting to work on ways to provide those tools as part of their software packages, because they know if they don't, then people are going to be using AI to come up with their own software packages.
So I think that's how I, when I worked on redesigns for libraries and other organizations, part of it was doing a competitive analysis of what is everyone else doing. And now it seems like a bad time to do that, but 2 or 3 years from now, it'll be great. Because I think we're in a period of enough change that, like, the next version of the website will want to be significantly different than what you have now. But right now is not the time to figure it out.
I think those are great points. My question then for the room is, do we need another square is that a different square than we're just looking at the brand identity of the library?
Some of what I put in this is information architecture sometimes is involved with just, I love that in my head, and it's not that intuitive, with the website CMS. Because if you're redoing the CMS, you're rebuilding that underlying architecture to present the information architecture. I kind of combine those two because I start with the tool to present the information. As far as the graphic design aspect, that comes in the tail or along with the marketing design. So what Peter's talking about is up there in website CMS, and what Mike is talking about is down there in JMRL design review. Now, if you want to kind of put slash information architecture along with website CMS and put slash website graphic design along with the marketing, that's kind of, I mean, that's where those two fall in my mind when I laid this out. I mean, information architecture can happen outside of the CMS or, you know, separate from, but since you're rebuilding that underpinning, I kind of do them at the same time.
Seems like it might be worth adding IAs.
Sure, because that's about when I would reevaluate. It's kind of like, because sometimes the tool kind of drives a little bit about, oh, we could do this or we could do this. And
Sarah, you're talking about in the blue field up here, the website CMS. Don't tell Michael that that's a year after we just been described.
well, I mean, Mike's not talking about the information, not necessarily how the information is laid out. He's talking about the look and feel, which is different.
So what's the suggestion then for in that blue website CMS, adding something about?
Information, well, I mean, information architecture, content structure.
I think that then gets to what Peter's talking about, but maybe not to what. Mike is saying.
What Mike's talking about to me is more that marketing review because, yes, if the colors just change colors, but it's, I mean, those two things kind of go hand in hand, the marketing.
I think we're just talking about language changes. We're just talking about trying to make this clear for everybody who's looking at it.
To address the website aspect in those two steps.
So we said branding, we would say like web rebrand or something like that. Like that.
Redesign. If it was me, I would just put another square under marketing behind to the right of the design and branding and say website redesign. And that would encompass website / UX. That would encompass all the above, I think.
Sure, you get, because it's the same time frame. I mean, that is part of why the CMS is a little bit after the marketing. Because they blend into each other.
So what we like now is like the kind of CMS and information architecture are kind of happening in parallel with the
Exactly.
graphic part
Exactly.
of the.
So yeah, if we just put another marketing part for the graphic.
That says like website UX branding review.
I would say we already said branding, so we already got that. I said redesign.
Graphic redesign
So
and
that commits JMRL to a redesigned website
the website.
during that time.
What year is that?
What's my retirement?
Yeah, I would say, you know, that's looking at, well, if the marketing graphic design changes, it's gonna have to happen, so, in 3.5 years, which actually, I mean, for 10 years for a website,
Pretty good.
that's right on target. Please
You know
find
me,
more
I would
staff.
prefer review. I would prefer review, but I hear you, Mike. So then do we still need a change up in the blue website CMS to add information architecture?
Sure. Just to be clear. Because that does need to happen. I mean, we do need to evaluate how, and what patrons are looking for and what staff are looking for information wise. We constantly are doing a little bit of that. I was meeting about the bookmobile page today about redoing a lot of that structure, but and overall architecture, that's about the right time.
I would love to be able to live do this, but it's a Canva thing and I'm just terrible at it. So if I'm understanding correctly, under the blue evaluations, time frame, we're gonna add after website CMS / information architecture. And down in the bottom under marketing review, under JMRL design, branding and review, but offset to give some time for the branding review to happen first, a website UX redesign. And that'll be its own new block. Sound good?
And I'll add that to the Canva. Get up.
Okay.
The one question I had was, is there, Right, so this whole thing came about partly as like something to create for the board, right?
Yes.
And so are there any obvious things here that are sort of where board involvement will be needed? I mean, because a lot of this stuff is like, it's good for the board to know what's happening or it's gonna
Right.
happen, but right, we're not going to, you'll tell us at the board meeting, oh, we started work on this. Or,
Right.
is there anything where you anticipate, oh, we're gonna need a board discussion, or we're gonna need the board to sign off on this, or, I mean, something like that might be helpful.
As always, it's the funding aspects, right? So, some of these things are kind of built into our funding structures, right? Like the costs for the approval upgrade, it doesn't require the board to give more money for it, we're working in our operational budget, and the biggest cost there is Sarah's time. Potentially, the catalog discovery layer could come at a high cost. I know that we had a lot of discussions internally about using the out of the box catalog that comes with our integrated library system, which has gotten a lot better. The original free one is our classic catalog still, which you can still find, but the new one is a true discovery layer with lots of integrated, people can integrate Overdrive better with their library account and things like that. So there are things to like there, but every time we look at it seriously, we balk at the cost. And the cost is similar to what it would cost to add a part-time position to do some of these things. So to answer your question, it's money and prioritizing that.
You can't really predict it, it's trying to have the timing of it right now.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of can for that one because we know. Well, actually, no, because that's what we're currently using is open source software, so it would be during a budget cycle, the board committing resources to it. And I think that, to be honest, I think that has a better chance of making it through. We've got such a long budgeting process with so many different stakeholders. And the sticking point this year wasn't on the need of the organization, it was the adding new positions. It wasn't the money even from our jurisdictional partners. It was the fact that they have to hold the line on adding positions for their own organization. So they don't want to fund what they consider to be an outside organization's new positions. But if the money had been in there and dedicated to something else, then it might have gone through. Okay. I know it's a long-winded way to say it, I'm not sure.
When did you say this was gonna be, you're gonna present this to the board?
So, that's what I wanted to talk about with the group. It has to be in May because this is a goal for my annual evaluation, which is in May. The question is whether or not this is just part of the tech committee's report, or we just put this in the handouts for the board and you review it briefly for the board, or if it requires its own separate. We've already got a CE lined up for May about summer reading. So it could be a continuing.
Part of the tech committee
It
update.
could just be part of the tech committee report. I want to make sure the board feels like they have a chance to ask these types of questions as well. Sure. Do you care?
No, I'm just thinking, about the money for the part-time position and the money for upgrades and stuff, and wondering whether or not it could be put as a full-time position and then trying to manipulate that, I guess, and get the half position or the half money to do, I think, in the next budget.
Potentially. I mean, that's one reason that the timing of this this kind of internship we're doing this summer works, because it'll be finishing around the same time we have to make recommendations for next budget year. So we'll have a good sense of whether or not that's going to meet these needs, or whether or not we need to go back and ask for additional funding.
Yeah, and my experience with interns is they can be very good, be just a time suck.
That's also my experience.
Kind of going like, yeah, I don't know. 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 I don't know we'll see.
I think the one, shouldn't say this, but it is a group project, and in my experience, like, there might be some members of the group that will not contribute as much as others, but hopefully there will be somebody who is conscientious, dedicated to the goals.
This is gonna kind of blur over to our next agenda item.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about AI, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of in between, so I sort of feel like, if I were you, I would be trying to find, like, to not just bet everything on this AI intern project. Like, I think that's a great thing and good things might come out of it. But I also feel like, and it's the fact that it's gonna be happening this summer, it seems crazy to me that a $10 million a year institution couldn't find the funds to sort of just, for the summer or for 6 months or whatever, to kind of get someone to help Sarah offload some of this, kind of manual, labor that's just kind of data intensive stuff. So that she can also be learning the AI stuff alongside this group, because ultimately, from my perspective, ultimately you need those skills in-house, right? And you've got to have the time to experiment. And so I think there would be like a ton of value to that. So that, I mean, again, if there's any creative way to sort of.
Yeah, I mean, we need to talk about other options too, and it's reallocating current staff probably. That's what that means.
Yeah.
JMRL is pretty stretched thin across the board.
Yeah.
And we thought about trying to make a specification for a volunteer need,
Yeah.
like, hey, can somebody come in? Some sharp high schoolers come in, 2 hours a week, and there's 4 of them, and they're been trained on our standards and outputs and so forth. I don't know, but
Yeah, potentially.
The benefit of that in my mind is you don't have to mess with any funding. It's only your cost of managing these hypothetical volunteers.
It's finding it similar to the interns, right? It's finding the right volunteer, and we've got Casey's doing our volunteer management for now, and we have a pretty strict a volunteer job, we write a job description for it, so we can come up with a description there.
Right, but I'm saying if you don't ask, you won't get it. So if you put that out, maybe the right person would be in the community somewhere.
Yeah, could be.
And talking about the high school, I know that several high schools have different programs for the governor school and whatnot, where the kids have to do a full year independent project and they try to get their hours.
It depends on what level of work we're looking for.
Yeah, and the confidentiality.
Right, that's the one, I've utilized volunteer time before to help with the intranet, because that's just internal JMRL stuff. Where it gets a little sticky, especially in the calendar, is we have patron data there. We have privacy question, and we kind of put the line at having a volunteer have access to all that, because I mean, I'm not the decision maker, but that's where we've kind of held back.
I
when
think
it's come up before.
that I think we would have to do some work to kind of excise that from the project that we're talking about. Basically. So we're talking about probably what's coming from staff, crafting it in such a way that it's ready to go in Trumba, not what happens after that when we start to.
But I mean, some of this content entry work, the work that I do is directly in Trumba, where I have access to patron data.
Yeah.
And so, and a non-JMRL staff person, I don't know if you want them to have access. Okay.
But I don't know that means a no to that question, like even if it means like some of the data entry still has to be handed over to staff, if the work to craft the data in such a way that it's ready to go, cut and paste, could still be of value. Potentially.
Maybe, right now it's all directly in Trumba where there's full access to patron data. That's the workflow right now.
When staff are entering though, they don't have access to Trumba.
Correct, but my side of it,
Right.
in terms of approving, reviewing, and adding registration stuff does.
Yeah, so it would just be the approving and reviewing that would be.
Yeah, give it to you in a format that's pretty much like good copy paste or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. So there's not really a preliminary step before that.
Well, that's what we're trying to work on, maybe helping some of that. There's a little bit of, I have to massage what staff give me. And that takes, that's where we can have some automation, is just to clean up what staff give, but yeah, there's still.
Yeah, and volunteer work cannot replace what paid library staff. And that's, we use a lot of volunteers, you know, I can present to the board on the amount of volunteer hours that go into what JMRL is presenting to the world, but it doesn't take the place of the paid staff that are offering these services, so.
Is there like have the Friends ever funded a staff kind of like a temporary staff position, or is that just a weird thing?
Yeah, generally they're not paying for operational, which they would consider to be the obligation of the jurisdiction.
Yeah, okay.
Having said that, the annual intern comes from the Friends Foundation, you know, so the summer intern this year is gonna be at the Central Library. There's a potential here that she would have some aptitude to work on this. That's not what she was trained to do, right? You know, it would be an after the fact, we've got Louisa, there's funding that came from a grant to bring in a high school kid for the summer for internships. Yeah, free labor is probably not the answer in the long run, but
And I would say that in general, as been like the way that we approach these sort of like team opportunities is like less from like a free labor standpoint and more of like creating like an enriching experience for the team.
opportunities for
Right, and actually, I've used a team before, summer team has helped me with, blog stuff before, and I asked them, have you ever used CMS, have you ever used a blog, and their answer is no. Well, that's some tech literacy that's some basic tech literacy that was a good experience to at least see what the general, what WordPress looks like and how to use it. Because you can transfer that to several other tools that are used to edit websites. So I have lots of tasks that would be valuable to,
Yeah, maybe we'll
in
take a
terms of
look
whatnot,
at.
but it still is only short periods of time,
Right.
and it's not necessarily the big, heavy data entry task, which is the calendar.
And I think it's all on the table, you know, basically, like when that funding didn't come through, the options are like, okay, maybe AI can do all of this, maybe we need to go back and ask for this again next year, which has been JMRL's 50-year history. It's like keep asking until we get it. Maybe there's some combination of current staff or volunteers that can work on this, like all of it. Clearly, I think organizationally, we recognize that there's not enough hours being put towards this problem as is. So however we can massage that together.
Yeah, and I guess like my thinking is just that there's, right, if you try to sort of think about the reasons for this, right, it's, right, JMRL is stretched very thin, especially in sort of tech and IT sphere. Talked about concerns around security, right, like it's stretched too thin, you miss something, or right, and like, you know, and a disaster happens. But also, right, for our next gen item, the AI piece, right, it's a time where folks, you know, the more tech savvy folks in the library should be having some opportunity to learn, right, not necessarily to implement anything now, but to be learning this stuff, because it's, right, we're going through one of these waves of rapid change that you don't want to get left behind. So that, to me, like, in terms of making the argument, those would be a couple of important factors. So is that what we want to talk about now, that you wanted to talk, sort of?
Yeah, I think, and so the other matters the one note that I had was to mention this AI for VA project that we have enrolled in here. And then also just kind of an update. This group talked quite a bit about, I guess, mostly about staff use of AI at the last meeting. And there was some discussion about whether or not there needs to be a board-led policy about this, or whether this is more of a staff-led procedure. and largely fell on the side of a staff-led procedure. So we have had internally an AI working group, of which Fred is a founding member, that has been talking about this for a while. And now we have also a procedures working group that is going from top to bottom, prioritizing the procedures at JMRL that are out of date and developing new ones for skill areas or parts of the library that need to be worked on. And this is at the top of the list there. So most of the conversation has been about what tools staff will have available to them. So there's some work that needs to happen kind of on a procurement end and a selection in there that Jeremy is going to be working on. And once we have that piece in place, then it's going to be telling staff, like, here's the kind of guardrails for using AI, like, here's the tool we want you to use. Here's what information you shouldn't share with these tools, like here's acceptable use. And at the same time, the AI working group is going to continue to work on training and materials for staff on how to talk about AI with the public who are coming in and asking us, like, how do you use these tools? How can I, I've heard about this thing. What does it do? So I shared with you all our neighbors at Central Wrap. They've got a pretty good procedure that I like. Staff's had some eyes on, but we have not yet adapted it to JMRL's uses. We're waiting for the procurement end of this. I think it looks pretty good, though, if folks had a chance to review it. It's, it's not so comprehensive that staff get bogged down in it, but I think it gives some good.
When you say the procurement end, is that talking about like, Gemini?
Yeah, most likely Gemini.
Yeah, at the subscription tier that we have for our Google Workspace environment right now, we have very limited access to anything in Gemini. So we're talking about only one more tier, which opens up a lot of Gemini features and things like just docs and sheets and things like that. So right now we have just a little bit of Gmail integration, and that's it.
So right now, if someone from JMRL wanted to just use a basic chat interface, like a ChatGPT or a Claude with the Gemini version of it, that would not be sandboxed in our workspace.
So it is, but it's limited to only internal user data, and it's I think I can look this up to get a clear answer, but it's not allowed access, it's not allowed to share our internal data outside within. So it can only search within our internal user data, and but really the only tool that can do that is Gmail. Does that make sense?
And so, what I was asking is, if I just go to Gemini and start chatting, hey, here's my email. You already said it, so it's bad. Here's my program description.
Right.
Can I ideate with you and tweak that? Does that
Does
that happen within our workspace?
Nobody's actually using that in any sort of workflow, but whether or not you can do that, I actually don't know the answer to.
I do. You cannot right now. Like, you can only use it in like language creation within Gmail. So if you open an email and you're like, here's what I want to say, we'll help you do that.
Yeah.
But like, it's the next level enterprise and we have 2 accounts currently that have access to that. One is called something like IT Help Desk, or what is it called? The one of the Gmail accounts is an enterprise account because it hosts all of our shared drives and things like that.
Yeah.
And if you use that one, then you can do what you're talking about, the ideation. You can open a new doc. You can say, hey, look at this folder and make me a presentation, that type of stuff. But right now that's limited to strictly within make me some words to send this email.
And then the next tier that Jeremy's talking about would include.
That's correct. In the next tier, Google Doc, and you could have a Gemini chat box integrated into it where you could ask that type of prompt.
And it would have access to and look at my email and create me a schedule or programs that I'm working on.
And does Gemini have capabilities that are similar to like Claude Cowork?
I don't know how well they compare. there's probably tiers of performance there too. Like if we just only go up one tier, there's probably still a lot of things that can't do comparable to some other AI clients. But yes, it's relatively for at least giving staff a taste of what's possible. Yes, I would think it would be at least based on comparable.
And for those parts, I'm thinking more in terms of like the folks in IT, right? So when we talk about things like automating some of Sarah's tasks, right, that would be more at that coworker code level.
Sure.
So yeah, I was just curious whether you guys would be able to play with that kind of capability for automating repetitive tasks.
Yeah. Again, just because we just only have a few accounts to even be able to test things with it, we haven't done that into it yet.
It's possible we're looking at several different services. You know, it's possible that we would need something specifically for that type of work.
Yeah, we could subscribe to something else if somebody did have the opportunity to test it and say, hey, this is really the solution to this problem.
I think that's much cheaper than what we're talking about on an enterprise level.
Yeah.
You know,
Because all the stories that I've heard just personally have been people using Claude Code or Claude Cowork. Like I've had 3 people in my life who've just been like, oh my God, I can't believe what I was able to do in a weekend. And those have all been that platform. And so, you know, if that kind of capability isn't yet for Gemini, it would be cool to have folks in that IT able to experiment. Because again, that's what I'm talking about in terms of like the stuff that's transformative. It's my perspective is it's not ready for like execution yet, but it's kind of thing you want to be seeing what's possible, so that just like you're doing with the student project, right? It'll kind of help to get a sense of what's possible, and what's from what you want to really avoid.
yeah, I mean, in terms of the staff that we have that are working on that, it's a much smaller subset, obviously, so I think our first thing is to get a tool that all staff could have access to provide them guidance on how to use it, because Mary came and talked to you all at the board about what librarians and library staff members' attitudes were about AI across the state, right? And we noticed that, like, before Jeremy was here, when Kayla was still here, the Gemini for Gmail just turned on one night, and it was part of like, oh, we upgraded the package, and immediately she was swamped with staff saying, oh my God, what does this, turn this off right now? It was like a fear of a new tool. So part of this is a little bit, and handholding is not the right word because it's condescending, but our staff is smart and they're talented and they will figure out their own comfort levels with this technology in order to best do their jobs. But there needs to be, I think, a little bit of sandboxing, and that I think will come with something that they're a little bit more familiar with than saying, here's this new tool. My other concern is we've already outsourced so much of our organizational data to, better for worse, to Google. All of our drive, all of this information that we're sharing now, it's all, we're trusting them to safeguard it for us. And so this would be another layer to that, rather than opening it up to a different outside organization. So
I have everything pretty much as disabled as possible now, because the current concern with so many or such limitations in the tools that we're paying for, I'd rather make sure that all of that data is not being touched by Google as much as possible.
And I do know that, I'm well aware that we have staff that are already using these tools, but they don't have the organizational support for it. And they have private accounts for various different generative AI chatbots or whatever it might be, and they're using them to great effect. I mean, I can see when people's emails all of a sudden are a lot clearer than they were before, or program descriptions and things like that. So I think that we need to get the tool in place and then provide staff with some guidance and then provide them with training, and it's not going to move as fast as the world's changing. You just can't be caught behind in the wave or something.
our workspace renewal happens in January, so December, January. Change.
And we might accelerate that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we might buy a half year and then, you know, see if we can renegotiate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a weird moment because so many people are using it and, you know, and folks are getting very excited, and at the same time, the backlash is growing, not just with libraries, but
Yeah.
broadly. So it's sort of politically, you know, tricky.
When Google turned on the mail one, I'm not sure how much of it was a fear or if it was just like all of a sudden it was doing a bunch of stuff I didn't ask and expect. And
Yes.
I mean, they just didn't know
Yes.
what they were interacting with or how to interact with it. So
I think that's exactly the point for our
it
staff. It wasn't- it was like, what is this new thing and why didn't anybody tell me about it and how does this work and turn it off, you know? So,
Yeah,
so like when, you know, Jeremy and I talk about when we're doing something technologically in JMRL, you have to tell staff what's gonna happen in advance, talk about it while it's happening, and then after you're done, tell them like, here's what happened, so that they feel like there was transparency and that they knew what was happening. So that one example is something that, you know, the rug kind of like, there was no notification, staff weren't notified, the organization wasn't notified. But now we have an opportunity to say like, hey, here's what we're doing. We're gonna get this thing. Here's our procedures that we're gonna use for it. Here's the expectation. We're gonna check back in every, you know, however often and say, how's it going? Is this adding value? Is it missing something? Is the tool lacking something that you know that one of these other tools has? And to your point about the coding, you know, is this not meeting our needs? And then just like any other tool, evaluate there. I got kind of, I used an analogy for staff that I've had some blowback on about AI itself just being another tool and how, you know, libraries have for decades now, you know, technology has changed. Librarians have learned the new technology, shared it with the public, and used it to provide better library service. And I did get some feedback saying like, this is different.
Yeah.
It's not the same as saying like, this is an iPhone. I still kind of think it's.
There's such a range of AI. I mean, there's a wide range of what AI means. Grammarly is using AI. We have staff with us.
Yeah.
But then again, there's also.
I mean, you've got the CEOs of AI firms saying that this is gonna wipe out half of all white collar jobs and stuff. So
Right.
it's like, you know,
Oh, so I think some of the initial like pushback was also like from a regulatory compliance standpoint of like we deal with like really important sensitive information that like they take very seriously and like especially with no notice of like, is this patron data going to be like that's sort of like I think very reasonable hesitation like really seriously the work that we do community. And then I think that there's, you know, sort of a lot of ways in which like using AI as a tool like really helps us see, okay, what do we want from this tool? Like, is it worth the investment? And is it worth the investment as compared to other things like additional staff time or however it's some tools we do instead of it? So we're not just like doing it to say that we're doing it, and instead we're doing it to solve an actual problem. And if that problem needs additional staff training, is that better served by a tool or training time or like specifically target training and training?
Yeah, training is my biggest concern more than anything, and it usually is. I feel like JMRL does do the best we can with training, but we've got one day a year where all staff get to train. And then every branch has their spring training day, which is largely managed by their managers, you know, so we ask of staff a lot of training. We've got cross-training initiatives that they have to do throughout the year. We've got, you know, hours that they have to meet throughout the year, but like, it's hard to have a consistent, everybody has to do this thing because we've got so many different needs and roles, but not impossible.
Well, the other problem is the target is moving so fast. It's not monthly, it's weekly, there's new stuff.
Yeah.
There's a better mousetrap every week. And so, yeah, once a year, it's gonna be tough.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing. We just have a tremendously engaged and smart staff that will roll with the punch. I think that's all I had to say though, Peter, about I wanted to tell this group about that project for the summer.
that's great. Anything else that we wanted to talk about?
So, Sarah and I will make some adjustments to this roadmap and it will be in the board's handouts, which will go out on Monday because it flies this month. And then this will just be part of your report for here's what we talked about. That sound okay? Yep. And if you want, we can get together next week if you wanna review. anything.
I mean, I think of say some stuff and then you can kind of catch whatever I missed
Sounds good.
or correct it or whatever.
In the meantime, we'll also take a look at I'll take a look at the volunteer job description that we've used in the past to help out digital services and see if there are ways we can kind of refine language to.
There is a. for digital.
Well, there you go. We will create one.
I've had a ticket for myself to write one since December.
I'll tell you what,
That
why-
has been my
Why are
time.
you sign that ticket to me? and I'll
Okay.
take that off.
Great.
You just freed up hours of Sarah's time.
Jeremy knows I love reassigning tickets.
Yeah, give it to me.
I know you're just gonna ask Claude to do it for you. All right. We're all set. Thanks,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Appreciate your time. Have some water, some tips on the way out.